That one nice.
Very much.
Fighting with me, Discord.
I said boop in the chat, and Tranime said, "Ah, my eyes!"
Now, is that my imagination, or does Justice Ginsburg look like she's storing nuts for the winter? Seriously, there's got to be an age limit on the Supreme Court, or at least periodic dementia tests. I should probably save this for discussion.
Hey everybody, how are you guys doing this evening? Let me see here. Okay, that should work. Hey everybody, welcome to Coffee Talk, where we talk a little bit more about things that I couldn't talk about in the morning because reasons and stuff. Tonight we have quite a few topics to cover, and I am here with Lou, who is muted, so she missed her cue. Yep, it's a stream of mine. There's bloopers. And Mitch.
Hello, children.
Meh. Sorry, I was getting something to eat.
I kind of figured.
I thought you just chirped at me.
Merp.
Well,
No, it's merp.
And let me see who I have got in the chat. Let me see if this participation thing actually works. I have a Dade Murphy. Welcome. Pull up a chair and make yourself at home. A good evening or a good morning to Hunley. Don't know what time of day it is over there where he's at. I've got a Nietzsche Statum. Welcome. Pull up a chair. Make yourself comfortable. Struggling Justice from this morning. Welcome back. And a welcome back to Traname Girl. And yes, as far as the jazz goes, I like to start my coffee talk with jazz, preferably lounge jazz, but I can't find any good royalty-free or Creative Commons lounge jazz, so I don't get copyright struck. So I do my best. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. and my voice has decided to go out right as I'm starting the stream, so yay for that. I'm glitching, y'all. Alright, as we were getting ready for the show, there was some breaking news, so we're going to read and respond to that first and foremost. Oh no, wait a minute, something way more important.
Is this the kind of breaking news that comes with a spinning graphic and some fanfare?
Not on this channel.
Oh, good thing.
I'm low budget.
Da, da, da,
Alright,
da, da,
yeah.
da.
First, we're going to start out by paying our respects to a fallen soldier who fell in Afghanistan. I like to support my troops any way I can. And this is Sergeant First Class, who fell in Afghanistan in the line of duty. So we need to give him a moment of silence. And now a quick reminder. Remember, your freedom is never free. There's always somebody out there fighting to make sure it stays that way. Alright. First story is...
Oh no, I was just saying that's what I tell gotta tell myself every single time, especially when I hear people talking about it and saying, oh, we're free, we're lucky, and all this, like, and people take that for granted. I have to remind myself, those people probably don't know that nothing is truly free.
No.
There's always a price.
That is true. First order of business this evening. Breaking news. Trump signs order disbanding voter fraud commission. This is out of the Associated Press. I am going to read it in its entirety. So whenever we come across something that doesn't sound quite right, we can stop and comment on it and then continue. Out of Washington, President Donald Trump has signed an executive order disbanding his voter fraud commission. A White House statement is blaming the decision on numerous states that have refused to provide voter information to the Presidential Advisory Commission on Election Integrity.
Wonder why they refuse to provide the info.
I don't know. White House spokeswoman Sarah Huckabee Sanders says that rather than engage in endless legal battles at taxpayer expense, Trump has signed an order to dissolve the commission and asked the Department of Homeland Security to determine the administration's next steps. Critics saw the commission as part of a conservative campaign to strip minority voters and poor people from the voter rolls and to justify unfounded claims made by Trump that voter fraud cost him the popular vote in 2016. Past studies have found voter fraud to be exceptionally rare. Good evening, CT, and welcome back. Yeah, I would like to know why they weren't cooperating.
No, it's like, well, yeah. I thought you were going to answer CT's question.
Yeah, I saw he saw it on Twitter. Yeah, this is right now. This is just breaking. So I mean, I just got this alert while I was playing the intro music and stuff. So I figured I would. So it's still a developing story. So hopefully more information will come out of this, because this does make me a little bit curious. Because this does seem like an abrupt kind of decision, and then why wouldn't states want to cooperate with this particular kind of investigation if there wasn't any voter fraud? I mean, it's a little hinky.
I can imagine a few reasons.
Oh?
None of them speak very highly of the states in question.
I would like to see a list of the states that didn't cooperate.
I mean, honestly, on the one hand, I'm going to cough again.
Okay. I cough and do all kinds of stuff all the time.
There we go.
Okay.
On the one hand, does the federal government have the right to see whether or not you've voted?
Yep.
But, you know, we already know that there's cases of the dead voting, fictitious characters voting. So, yeah, the investigation is warranted on some level.
Yeah.
Damn it.
Hello, Mariel. Hey, Lone Wolf. Hey, Neil. Welcome, Lone Wolf. I believe this is the first time you have been in my chat. So pull up a chair, make yourself comfortable.
Get some coffee.
Yeah. All right, now, one of the first scheduled stories of the stream. Straight from the White House. Joint statement from the White House, the Senate Majority Leader's Office, and the House Speaker's Office regarding the budget and spending, issued the 3rd of January, so it is today. Today, the Republicans and Democrats in Congress shared their priorities for a bipartisan spending agreement. The American people deserve a government that funds our great military, protects our borders, and leads to a more prosperous future for all. It is important that we achieve a 2-year agreement that funds our troops and provides for our national security and other critical functions of the federal government. It also remains important that members of Congress do not hold funding for our troops hostage for immigration policy. We've been clear about these budget priorities from the beginning and hope that further discussions will lead to an agreement soon. So they're still hemming and hawing back and forth on the budget, I see.
So who was that from, or like what?
It's a joint statement out of the White House. I follow the White House, the Department of Defense, the Secretary of State, and a few others out of Washington on Twitter. So I get this directly from them. So, yeah, I mean, they're still trying to figure out their budget. Hopefully we can get one, because, I mean, I don't remember them ever setting a budget under the Obama administration.
Well, it's part of their job. By not completing it, they're not doing their job. You know, if I don't do my job, it's a terminable offense.
Yeah. But they seem to be able to not do their job and still keep it, which is, stupid.
You know, here's an idea.
I need that
for
coffee,
everyone.
Maddie.
This is just a suggestion, but next time it comes around to voting some of these people back into office, start looking at the records.
Yeah.
Start looking at the voting records, where they really stand versus what they versus the platform they campaign upon, and vote accordingly.
Yep. I mean, they need to start doing their job, but I mean, it's like people are voting upon popularity and not where people are standing on the issues.
Yes and no. I mean, let's face it, Trump won because of his stance on the issues. I don't think very many people like the man.
No.
I don't think very many people can actually relate to the man. But he had the right stance on the issues. That's why he won the election.
Yeah, I can see that. I can totally see that.
It was clear that he wasn't going to knuckle under to some feel-good fantasy island ideal of life.
Yeah. Nietzsche says, or we can stop voting for people that were nominated by the same schmucks that never did their job to begin with, because they're really going to help us with more of the same.
Yep.
Agreed.
Yeah, for example, if Nancy Pelosi supports someone as a candidate, that's a good clue not to vote for that person.
Yeah, I would say so.
I mean, I'm still boggled that she gets back in time and again.
I know, right? But then again, isn't she out of California?
Yeah.
So shouldn't that, like, explain it?
What's her?
You would
what's
think so.
What's the name of what's her bucket up in Vermont or whatever or wherever?
Elizabeth Warren?
Yeah, that one.
Was it Liawatha? Pocahontas?
Shit, I almost didn't swallow my coffee.
I'm glad you said coffee there.
Yep. All right, here we go. Next one. This is the Federal Communications Commission status report for areas impacted by Hurricane Maria. They're focusing on Puerto Rico, and I am going to scroll down to the actual meat and potatoes of it, which is right now these are percent cell sites out of service by country. As of this report, there are 9.5% of the cell sites are out of service. Considering the fact that over half the island was out of service and without power, they've made a lot of progress. One county, however, Vieques, has greater than 50% of its cell sites still out of service, so they still have some work to do there. The information shown was provided by the signatories to the Wireless Resiliency Cooperative Framework, wow, and several additional companies that agreed to allow us to include their data in the aggregated data. So this is aggregated. U.S. Virgin Islands, overall 18.8% of cell sites are out of service. 37.5%, down from 50% of cell sites in St. John are out of service. So they're still working on that there.
All I have to say is this: the freaking FCC.
Well, they handle the communications. This is what they're supposed to do, is handle the communications.
Well, I know. I was talking about the reference to the Family Guy thing.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Yep.
I'm bad at humor. You'll have to excuse me.
Let's see. Cable systems and wireline combined. Since there are widespread power outages in Puerto Rico and the U.S. Virgin Islands, the FCC has received reports that large percentages of consumers are without either cable services or wireline service. While the companies have been actively restoring service, the majority of the customers do not have service because commercial power is not yet available in their respective areas. In Puerto Rico, there are no major switches that are affected. So, Puerto Rico, no change from Friday. 5 TV stations are confirmed operational. 2 are suspected to be out of service. 70 TV stations have been issued special temporary authority to be offline. And 30 TV stations have unconfirmed status. In the Virgin Islands, we have 14 TV stations that have been issued special temporary authority to be offline, and 2 TV stations have unconfirmed status. As far as AM radio stations, 42 AM radio stations are confirmed operational. 8 AM radio stations are suspected to be out of service. 21 are confirmed out of service by the Puerto Rican Broadcast Association. 1 radio station has unconfirmed status, and 2 AM radio stations have been issued special temporary authority to be offline. Welcome to my chat, Imperator. Yeah.
What is temporary authority to be offline?
We may have to look that up.
Hold on.
I mean, if they can't broadcast, they have to go through a freaking bureaucracy just to not broadcast. I mean, that seems weird to me.
I think Lou's looking that up.
There's got to be more. There's got to be more to it than what it suggests.
This is why we do Coffee Talk, to delve into it a little bit deeper. U.S. Virgin Islands, 2 AM radio stations are confirmed operational. 2 AM radio stations are suspected to be out of service, and 1 AM radio station has unconfirmed status. FM radio station status. In Puerto Rico, 55 radio stations are confirmed operational. 8 FM radio stations are suspected to be out of service. 17 FM radio stations are confirmed out of service by Puerto Rican Broadcast Association. 3 FM stations have been issued special temporary authority to be offline. And 28 FM radio stations have unconfirmed status. Neil, I wonder if there's some sort of special rules related to carrier waves missing or something.
Maybe.
Welcome, Aposmatic.
And Panina finally made it.
Yep.
Hey, look who showed up. I'm gonna give her a hard.
Better late than never. She's just appropriating my Cuban culture of lateness. Of course, she's part Cuban, so she's not really appropriating it, I don't think. U.S. Virgin Islands. 2 FM radio stations are confirmed operational. 1 FM radio station is suspected to be out of service. 1 FM radio station has been issued special temporary authority to be offline. There's that phrase again. And 12 FM radio stations have unconfirmed status. So that's where we stand as of today with the radio and television stations and cable services in Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands from Maria.
Okay, do you want me to read this, Maddie?
Uh-huh.
And I'll link it in the chat in case anybody else wants to read
Okay.
it. The Federal Communications Commission grants special temporary authority to permit immediate or temporary operation of certain radio facilities during emergencies or other urgent conditions. Few radio services can file manually. Most are required to file electronically. Refer to 47 CFR. I think that's subsection 1.93 for electronic filing requirements. It may be granted in the following circumstances. Emergency situations such as natural disasters, to permit restoration or relocation of existing facilities to continue communication service, for a temporary non-recurring service where a regular authorization is not appropriate, in other situations involving circumstances which are of such extraordinary nature that delay in the instruction of temporary operation would seriously prejudice the public interest. For more information on STAs, refer to whatever subsection that is.
Neil, so you even need the special authority just to run at reduced power. Seems that way.
Yeah, it's
Well, I think it's more to keep track of them, is what it sounds like.
it might be, you broadcast at a certain
I'll send the link
I
to you,
can't-
Manny.
Frequency?
not wavelength, but not even frequency. It's I can't remember the word, but it's about the I think it's a kilowatts.
I think so, yeah. Or
You
kilohertz.
broadcast say 50,000 kilowatts or whatever. I forget what the proper terminology is. And I could see where the license is issued at that level. And
Yeah.
if due to a natural disaster, if your signal has reduced power, that might technically be considered as operating outside of the existing license.
Yeah.
Panina says good.
Gigawatts.
Panina says good thing the FCC doesn't control the internet anymore.
Well, yeah. And that the FTC can now, help us when we feel like we're being screwed over is a really good thing now. They're back into it.
Oh, great.
So, well, I mean, if we're having problems, we now have an agency we can go to that can actually do something for us. Because, let's face it, none of us, unless we're the top 1%, have enough money to take a freaking company like AT&T to court. Neil, licenses are normally used to prevent radio coverage areas from conflicting. Add the bureaucracy to support that, and you run into this. Yeah, pretty much. Pretty much. Okay, the next one is President Donald J. Trump approves California disaster declaration. This was a link from a tweet that came out yesterday. Today, President Donald J. Trump declared that a major disaster exists in the state of California and ordered federal assistance to supplement state and local recovery efforts in the areas affected by wildfires beginning on December 4th, 2017 and continuing. Federal funding is available to the state and to eligible local governments and certain private nonprofit organizations on a cost-sharing basis for emergency work and the repair or replacement of facilities damaged by the wildfires in the counties of Santa Barbara and Ventura County. Federal funding is also available on a cost-sharing basis for hazard mitigation measures statewide. Brock Long, Administrator, Federal Emergency Management Agency, FEMA, Department of Homeland Security, named William Roche as the Federal Coordinating Officer for Federal Recovery Operations in affected areas. Damage assessments are continuing in other areas, and more counties and additional forms of assistance may be designated after the assessments are fully completed. So they're not even finished assessing all the damage. Sounds like. I mean, well, it did cover hundreds of acres, if not thousands. So there is an update for the California wildfire. So he did declare it a disaster, which needs to happen in order for funding to be funneled in order to help rebuilding there. I just wish he could have declared it a disaster for all the people that are, brainless.
When when California says they can handle shit on their own and be their own fucking country, but then they need to ask the president they hate for help with natural disasters. Yeah, it's one of those fucking days.
Yep. Hey, Hellbound. Yep. All right. Now we're getting to the crux. Yesterday, I had one of my patrons, one Randy Booger on Twitter by name, linked to me something that enraged him, and it turned out by deeper... Oh, what the hell? Let me refresh that. By deeper digging that this may have been taken out of context, but I'm going to read it as it is put here out of DC Clothesline. Their slogan, airing out America's dirty laundry, apparently not with all the context involved. Supreme Court Justice Ginsburg favors decriminalizing pedophilia and child sex trafficking. The legal definition of age of consent is, age of consent refers to the legally defined age at which a person is no longer required to obtain parental consent to get married. It also refers to the age at which a person is held to have the capacity to voluntarily agree to sexual intercourse. Sexual intercourse with a person under the age of consent may lead to criminal charges of statutory rape or sexual assault. Statutory rape is sex between an adult and a minor below the age of consent. Every state has a statutory rape law in some form. The age of consent varies from state to state, but is generally from 16 to 18 years of age. Consent of the victim and belief that the victim is of age of consent are usually considered immaterial. A pedophile is an adult with sexual fondness for and activity with children, i.e. minors below the age of consent, even though there's also terms like hebephilia and all this stuff. Pedophilia is legally defined as sexual child abuse, i.e. any sexual activity with a minor below the age of consent, which includes fondling a child's genitals, intercourse, incest, rape, sodomy, exhibitionism, and commercial exploitation of children through prostitution or the production of pornographic materials. And there went my monetization. Since the age of consent, the United States, which varies from state to state, is from 16 to 18. Lowering the age of consent to 12 would legalize pedophilia of children aged 12 and above. That is exactly what Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, a Clinton appointee, are we surprised that it's Clinton, and daughter of Russian Jewish immigrants, recommends in a co-authored book, and I found out that the co-authored book was actually published in 1977, that led to sweeping changes made by the federal government in the name of sex equality. In 1977, when Ginsburg was general counsel of the ACLU, also not surprising, she co-authored with Brenda Fagan Fausto, Sex Bias in the U.S. Code, a report of the U.S. Commission on Civil Rights, which was published by the U.S. Commission on Civil Rights in April 1977, for which Ginsburg and Fagan Fausto were paid with federal funds under contract number CR3AK010. The source of the information and quotes from Sex Bias in the U.S. Code you'll read below is Executive Director of Eagle Forum Susan Hirschman's testimony regarding Ruth Bader Ginsburg to the Senate Judiciary Committee, July 23, 1993. The 230-page Sex Bias in the U.S. Code refers hundreds of federal laws alleged to discriminate against women and recommends an avalanche of government and social changes. Before I go into the list, this is when she was a feminazi in all of her glory. She has since changed some of these, and a lot of these have been quote mined and taken out of context. We're going to get to that in the next couple of tabs as we're working through. As I think the next one is gonna pretty much blow this out of the water. The changes were supposed to include military draft and combat duty for women, legalization of prostitution, sex integration of prisons. I don't think that's a good idea. Reformatory schools and colleges and their activities, including sports, all girls and all boys organizations, and fraternities and sororities.
I don't.
What?
Well, no, I was just gonna say I don't want kids in fucking prisons. Thank you very much.
No, what they mean by sex integration of prisons is co-ed prisons. In other words, no longer all male or all female prisons. They're all in one prison.
Well,
Yeah, you
I
know what's
know
gonna happen
that's
next?
part of the thing is somebody's gonna fuck, somebody's gonna have a baby, and that's gonna end up there.
Yeah,
Well,
no.
yeah, that's what I'm getting at. That's where we're going to end up. We're going to end up. Let's face, our society is regressing, so
It is.
we're going to end up at that place where you're born guilty. So if you're born in prison to parents who were imprisoned for crimes, fuck it, you're born guilty. Might as well leave you there. It'll be cheaper.
Or make you a ward of the state, which usually happens if somebody has a baby while they're in jail. Let's see here.
It's just a recipe for disaster.
Oh, it is. Changing the names of the Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, and Big Brothers of America to reflect sex integration. Elimination of the traditional family concept of husband as breadwinner and wife as homemaker. Gee, wasn't there another feminazi that wanted to do that? Her name eludes me. She was the same person that did the Planned Parenthood thing.
Oh, Sanger, Margaret Sanger.
There she goes. Comprehensive government child care. Adoption of sex-neutral language. For example, artificial instead of man-made person. Human instead of man, woman, and plural nouns they and them instead of singular third-person pronouns. At the same time, however, Ginsburg and Feigen-Fasteau hypocritically insist that the U.S. Department of Labor retain its Women's Bureau, of course.
I have a sex neutral exclamation I could throw in their direction. Fuck you.
Yeah, I agree.
I'm sorry, that's gender neutral or whatever. I don't know, whatever the fuck whatever the horsecock language they're using. Jesus.
I know, right?
Did I just say forced horsecock?
Yes.
Yes,
Yes,
you
you did.
Sometimes it comes out of me. Oh, that sounded bad. But sometimes it comes out of me and I don't even recognize it.
A posmatic. I think Steinem was a bit like that, wasn't she? I think she was.
A bit.
Nietzsche, freedom of speech, language policing. Yep. Tranome girl, they can take women from me over my dead body. Exactly.
This one about Aposmic says, I'm pretty sure forced horsecock would get you sent to prison.
Yes.
That depends. That
Neil.
depends. The way we're redefining words now.
Oh yeah.
Forced is a fucking Valentine.
I thought you were gonna say depending on the weight of the.
Oh well. Depending on the weight of the horse, and we have a scale, Captain.
Neil.
Oh Lord.
Oh my God. Neil.
Anyway, Lou's forced horsecock notwithstanding.
What the fuck?
This is what's happening. It's just like Nietzsche said. Freedom of speech equals language policing. Bad equals good. Up equals down.
Yeah.
Rape equals foreplay.
Yeah, pretty much.
Imperator and Tranome. Oh, dear. I'm sorry I scare it.
Neil,
Yep.
prison architect taught me that women's prisons can have child care areas. Why does that not fucking surprise me?
Because there's some male guards.
Yeah.
Because there's dick.
And they're at mid shift. They've already finished their lunch. They got 10 minutes left on a break, and they're feeling a little frisky.
Yeah. Yeah. I think they're supposed to be outlawing that. Hello, we are live.
streaming,
we are
Walnut.
Yeah. We're streaming, Walnut.
Yeah, I saw.
Okay. Let me see. Ginsburg wrote on page 102 of Sex Bias in the U.S. Code, eliminate the phrase carnal knowledge of any female, not his wife, who has not attained the age of 16 years, and substitute a federal sex-neutral definition of the offense. A person is guilty of an offense if he engages in a sexual act with another person, and the other person is in fact less than 12 years old. Now, what gets me about her wording is that she's taking out the female, but she's not saying excludes males. Did you notice that?
Of course not, because women are innocent until proven guilty. Men are guilty until proven innocent.
Ginsburg and her co-author also recommends the Mann Act to be repealed. The Mann Act is a federal law which makes it a felony to engage in interstate or foreign commerce transport of any woman or girl for the purpose of prostitution or debauchery, love that word, or for any other immoral purpose, in other words, sex trafficking.
Yeah.
Wow.
Or drug testing, I suppose.
So, let me see here.
This is the part where you say "for fucking out loud."
Right? All
Really.
right, let's see.
Yeah, I can because it's neutral. The word fuck is utterly neutral.
Yeah. Now, when we go to the next website here, let me see. Ruth Marcus did the Ginsburg fallacy, November 15th, 2005. So, yeah, this is an old article. To hear some Republicans tell it, letting Ruth Bader Ginsburg onto the Supreme Court was a tough pill to swallow. She was an ACLU-loving, bra-burning feminazi, but they supported her anyway, dutifully respecting the president's rights to put his own stamp on the high court. Therefore, Democrats now owe President Bush the same deference when weighing in his choice of Samuel Alito. Ginsburg had, quote, supported taxpayer funding for abortion, constitutional right to prostitution, and polygamy, unquote. Texas Senator John Cornyn, Republican, said at the confirmation hearings for Chief Justice John G. Roberts Jr., and she opposed Mother's and Father's Days as a discriminatory occasions. But nevertheless, Republicans that put aside and supported her nomination because she had terrific credentials and because Clinton was entitled to nominate someone to the Supreme Court of his choosing.
I do have to point something out.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing in the Constitution that forbids prostitution.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's a
It's
moral
more-
thing that people built up over the years, and that's about fucking it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yep. To outlaw it is essentially government overreach.
Yeah.
The government has no
Right.
authority over what I trade for a dick cozy.
Yeah, that's basic. Well, basically, you also have to think of it. That's people choosing what to do with their body. If the government steps over that, then I would think that is instructing somebody what to do with their life, which is pretty much entirely against the Constitution.
Yeah.
Intellectuality.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It violates the tenets of freedom.
Exactly.
Most of it, I think the
Fourth
main
Amendment.
reason.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry.
Oh, go on.
Go ahead, Walnut.
I think the main reason is because,
Ooh, you are roboting.
along with previous sexuality, most people would say, let me check. Just a sec.
Okay.
Okay, is that better?
A little bit. You're still roboting a titch.
If it's easier to type it in the chat, Walnut, like in the live chat, then you could try and do that, and maybe
Oh,
we could read it.
okay.
I'm just saying if it's easier for you to do to get
Yeah.
your point across.
Which one's the live chat? Test
That's
chat?
on the YouTube thing. Hold on, let me send it to you.
Yep.
Oh, right.
So Ginsburg, according to Lindsey Graham, said the age of consent for sexual activity for women should be 12. In her writing, she said we need co-ed prisons because separate prisons are discriminatory against women. Now remember, this is from a book written in 1977. You got to keep that in mind.
Well, I don't know how it being written in 77 somehow.
Well, people
Well,
can...
I'm not. I don't know what being the age 12 has to do with it being written in 77.
Well, I'm making the emphasis to, people's views change on things.
Oh, okay, yeah.
That's why I
can see
keep
that.
emphasizing
Yeah.
that, this book
It's
is...
written 40 years ago, for Christ's sake.
Exactly. That's where I'm coming from with it.
Back when she was in her early 80s. For fuck's sake.
Where I come from in South Carolina, that's about far out of mainstream as you can get, but it wasn't about whether or not the Republicans agreed with her philosophy. Strong argument. If only it had happened that way, either those peddling this conveniently muddled version of events don't remember it correctly, or they are betting that others won't. Listeners beware, those who don't remember history are condemned to be spun by it. I love that new take on that old cliche. In fact, then Judge Ginsburg was a consensus choice pushed by Republicans and accepted by the president in large because he didn't want to take on a big fight. Far from being a crazed radical, Ginsburg had staked out a centrist role on a closely divided appeals court. Don't take it from me, Take it from Senator Orrin G. Hatch. In his autobiography, the Utah Republican describes how he suggested Ginsburg, along with Clinton's second pick, Stephen G. Breyer, to the president. From my perspective, they were far better than the other likely candidates from a liberal Democratic administration, Hatch writes. He was conned by a polygamy-loving leftist on the count of being associated with the American Civil Liberties Union. Ginsburg is guilty as charged. She helped shape the law on sex discrimination as head of the group's Women's Rights Project. Yet, if her views were as far out as critics suggest, how did she manage to win 5 of the 6 cases she brought to the Supreme Court? Plastic Walnut reaches. I believe there's a government overreach with prostitution is that similarly to the LGBT community, there was a strong Christian influence on American laws until recent years.
Oh yeah, I don't doubt it. It's still an overreach.
Mm-hmm.
Right, I think at this point where, yeah, we've taken care of homosexuality and then transgender, now we're going on to other issues that we're gradually solving them.
Yeah. The nuttier positions were all mined from a 1974 report she co-authored, The Legal Status of Women Under Federal Law. Did Ginsburg really think the age of consent should be lowered to 12? Conservative UCLA law professor Eugene Volokh has concluded that Ginsburg probably was the victim of a drafting error. As to the rest, it's fair to say that Ginsburg flirted with such views in the report. The document said, for example, that prostitution as a consensual act between adults is arguably within the zone of privacy protected by recent constitutional decisions, and recommended repealing federal prostitution laws. But even if Ginsburg took that position, it doesn't tell you all that much, which is no doubt why she got just one question about the report during her confirmation hearings. She hadn't made getting rid of Mother's Day her life's work, and in any event, she had a much more recent body of work, her dozen years as an appeals court judge, that belied any notion that she was a raging lefty. According to a Legal Times study of voting patterns on the appeals court in 1987, for instance, Ginsburg sided more often with Republican-appointed judges than with those chosen by Democrats. In cases that divided the court, she joined most often with then-Judge Kenneth W. Starr and Reagan appointee Lawrence H. Silberman in split cases. She agreed 85% of the time when then-Judge Robert H. Bork compared with just 38% of the time with her fellow Carter appointee Patricia M. Wald. By contrast, University of Chicago law professor Cass Sunstein found that Alito, in the overwhelming majority of cases in which he dissented, took a more conservative stance than his colleagues. In short, if this were an SAT analogy, Ginsburg would not be too liberal as Alito is too conservative, nor would her tenure on the High Court be called Ginsburg Gone Wild.
Oh God, that just brings horrible images to mind.
Yeah. What the hell?
Okay, I can see it. Judge Ginsburg in Fort Lauderdale or fucking New Orleans grabbing beads and shit. But the music in the background playing is fucking Lawrence Welk.
Oh God.
Oh.
Thank you for that imagery.
She's got one lazy eye because she's half drunk.
Oh,
Flashing her wrinkly ass saddlebags everywhere. Just
oh. Stop it. Stop it.
Shut up! You're gonna hurt somebody.
Oh my God, a Posmatic. Ginsburg Gone Wild with Force Horse Cock at Mardi Gras.
and in the other hand, a cigar.
Gone wrong, gone sexual in
Why
your
not?
hood.
Yeah. Oh.
This has all gone terribly, terribly wrong.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
in the hood too. It's like one of those prank videos.
Oh God.
Yeah.
Oh god.
Quick, someone find some footage from Girls Gone Wild and just fucking Photoshop her head in.
Oh God, that would be
You want me to
horrible.
do this?
God, no.
Then we can send it to her descendants.
Oh Jesus. Not that conservatives aren't trying to make it look that way. On the night of the Alito nomination, for instance, Fox News' Sean Hannity pushed this argument. You knew the very extreme positions of Ruth Bader Ginsburg, but you gave the benefit of the doubt to President Clinton, he prompted Senator John McCain. And we all know what state he's from. None of this, of course, answers the hard questions posed by Alito nomination. Is his judicial philosophy within the ideological goalpost? Boy, that's a question. Do those goalposts shift depending on the balance of the court or the ideology of the departing judge? In grappling with those questions, though, no one should be taken in by the Ginsburg fallacy. It is what the justice herself might call a straw person. I love how they reworded that on purpose.
Also, straw person.
Yeah. I see here. Oh, okay, here we go. This is the one I was missing. All right. This is out of Quora, and this is, has Justice Ginsburg stated the age of consent should be 12? This clarifies it a little bit more. Franklin Vo, small business owner, sexuality educator, and writer. The bizarre claim that, what?
That's just all those styles together. It's like, yeah.
Right? Prostitute.
Yeah, he's a pimp. That's a small business.
Yeah, totally, yeah.
Pimp. Professional in the management profession, or something like that.
Drives a pink Cadillac.
Position. Yeah, professional
Why
in the
not
management
golden?
position.
Gold Cadillac.
Gold
Right.
Cadillac that Ruth Bader Ginsburg owned in 1977.
Yep.
Conspiracy.
Yep. It says the bizarre claim that Ginsburg wants the age of consent to be 12 comes from a book published in 1977 called Sex Bias in the U.S. Code. It was a book about how laws in the U.S. in the 70s made rape illegal if a man was the rapist, but were written in such a way that a woman rapist could not be charged or punished. This is something that men's rights activists complain about all the time. Laws that say something is a crime if a man does it, but it's totally okay if a woman does it. And believe it or not, it's not one of the few places men's rights activists and feminists are in complete agreement. Not the nutty feminists, the other feminists. The law should treat men and women the same. In the sex bias in the U.S. Code, Ginsburg uses an example of a bill that was in front of Congress. Ginsburg did not write the bill. She did not support the bill. She was not in Congress. She had nothing to do with it. The bill said a person is guilty of an offense if he engages in a sexual act with another person, not his spouse, and 1, compels the other person to participate, A, by force, or B, by threatening or placing the other person in fear that any person would immediately be subject to death, serious bodily injury, or kidnapping. 2, has substantially impaired the other person's power to appraise or control the conduct by administering or employing a drug or intoxicant without the knowledge or against the will of such other person or by other means, pulling a Bill Cosby. Or 3, the other person is in fact less than 12 years old. Whosoever wrote the bill, I can't find who that was, but it was someone in Congress, not Ginsburg, was suggesting lowering the age of consent to 12. Ginsburg said this was an example of how the law has sexist biases, specifically because it assumes all rapists are men. With this law as it is written, a woman can never be a rapist. She said that if the law were able to be made so that it was not sexist, references to he would need to be taken out, and the bill would need to be rewritten to apply equally to men and women.
Oh my god, the effort.
Yeah. You have to be pretty desperate or pretty gullible to think that means Ginsburg wants the age of consent lowered to 12.
Someone did.
Someone did. But I mean, that makes more sense, that the fact that she wanted, the gender taken out of the bill. Because the way it's written, that's exactly what it infers. A man can be a rapist, but a woman cannot. Or implies, sorry. That a man can be a rapist, but a woman cannot.
I want to know who wrote it.
That's
I have kind of a more morbid curiosity about that.
We may have to look that up after the show and figure out who wrote it. Because that would
Maybe.
be... We'd have to go back because this was written in 77? 76, 77?
Yeah.
I think so. 7.
So, yep.
And I want to see a voting record on it.
Yeah,
Because that would be interesting.
that would be. We'd probably have to go into the Library of Congress. Isn't that where they list all the records for the votes and stuff? Or is that a different part of the...
Well, you can find, if you can find the number of the bill, then you can probably find a voting record attached to it. If it ever made it to vote. It may not have.
Now, this
Sure.
could be the Mann Act that was, MANN as in Nancy, that they referred to in the first article. We may have to look that up and see. Let me see here.
Because I've always, because for the longest time, the age of consent, pretty much nationwide, was 18. And then in some places, it seemed as if it happened all at once. In some states, it was reduced to 16.
Yeah.
And I can't help but wonder what motivated the people who voted yes on that were motivated by.
Yeah.
If you know what I mean.
Yeah.
I want to know what motivated them to vote yes on that.
Yeah, that would be a curiosity.
Maybe fear of prosecution.
Mm-hmm.
If the law remained as it was, I don't know, but I would like to find out.
Yeah. I would too. We may have to delve into that and make that another coffee talk for next week or something. We may have we have research. Aha. Okay.
Let the delving begin.
Exactly. All right, last one. Winter Storm Grayson brings ice snow to North Florida. Potential calendar day record snow in Charleston, Savannah. Yes, I said Savannah, as in Georgia, where I don't live. I don't live in Savannah, thank God. Yeah.
Oh, I love ice on a palm tree.
Winter Storm Grayson's mess of freezing rain, sleet, and snow is rapidly spreading through East Georgia, South Carolina, and into North Carolina after slickening roads and knocking out power as far south as northern Florida on Wednesday.
Oh, God. They're going to call it the slickening, aren't they?
That sounds like a terrible parody of a horror movie.
Well, it has claimed they're blaming 12 deaths on the storms.
Or they're blaming... Oh. Well...
Yeah, they're blaming 12
blaming
deaths.
the storm on 12 deaths, I would say.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm grammar and spelling and everything Nazi.
Sometimes my brain flips shit over, so I don't mind.
I do believe that Maddie said it correctly the first time.
You do? Maybe.
Yeah, they're blaming
maybe she
12
did. I don't know. I'm always horrible at those
Yeah.
kinds of things.
Yeah, they're blaming 12.
Which makes the storm the object of the blame in question, don't you know?
Yes. And I can see how this is, because sometimes when there's extreme heat, you have deaths too, because there are people that still don't have updated wiring and up-to-date houses so they can have central heat or air, depending on the climate.
Oh, yeah.
And a lot of these people, a lot of these people tend to be elderly, and nobody checks on them until they're well preserved but quite frozen.
Mummified, as the case may be.
Right.
Well, the thing is, like, I'd also have to wonder if maybe some of the deaths would have been like people who are homeless and people who don't have shelter, stuff like that.
Oh, it could be that too.
That was the first thing that popped into my head, was people without homes and stuff, because those are the first people that are out in the actual weather.
Yeah. And see, a lot of people from the north will sit there and laugh at people from down here in Georgia. And what a lot of people don't realize about the South is we're not equipped for major snow and ice storms. And
no, we are not.
No, and in the South, more often than not, when it snows, it melts just enough to when it freezes again, now we have a layer of ice.
That you can't see.
Yeah.
Exactly. And then there's snow on top of it.
Yeah, we call that black ice.
And we're not equipped to handle stuff like that in the South, and we tend to get laughed at every winter when it snows by the North people going, ha ha, you can't handle 3 inches of snow. And I always rebut by, how about 3/4 of an inches of ice?
Yeah, it's like, bitch, please go down to Texas for about a week and see how that shit works out.
Yeah.
When you're sitting in the back of a car and you have black ice across the fucking roadway, like, yeah, that's gonna be a little bit scary.
It is. And when
especially when you don't have traction on your tires, that's even fucking worse.
Yeah. What were you gonna say, Walnut?
I also like to interject, say, hey, you must be very prepared for hurricanes too, huh?
Right.
Well, hurricanes, and then that's like telling me I'm prepared for a fucking tornado. I mean, I have like the down pat, like I have the normal stuff, but rarely does it come into my area because I'm in a fucking valley.
Yeah.
More or less. At least where I'm at, it's considered a valley.
Yeah.
I'm right along the Gulf of Louisiana, so I have to worry about that shit.
Yeah.
Gulf
You only gotta worry about tornadoes. Be lucky. More Oklahoma has seen probably like 3 in the past 5 years, I want to say.
And see, what gets me is, while they're laughing at us, they don't realize that, A, we're ill-equipped. We don't have enough equipment to clear off all the roads.
That's because those fuckers don't have any damn problems themselves, so they make fun of other people for having them.
Well, yeah.
Exactly.
And they don't realize that we don't get snow every year.
No.
Let alone ice.
Well, yeah, it's not like It's not like Louisiana has a fleet of fucking plow trucks at its disposal.
No.
No.
We don't either. Like, fuck, in my community, we don't. If you aren't like a populated area in the fucking town, you don't get like my neighborhood. We don't get like trucks or anybody like going through and like salting the roads or anything.
Yeah.
No, we don't.
I'll tell you this. I live in the northern U.S., and where I live, there are not enough plow trucks.
Well, it's
the
not
county
bad
has
for
the
us.
fleet, and it's not big enough.
Yeah.
Well,
Damn.
yeah, and then they have some people that are just like, hey, can you give us the plow trucks or something?
I know, right?
What? Excuse me?
I mean,
Maybe just consider this for a minute. Maybe instead of selling the MRAPs to the fucking police, they should retrofit them with plow blades
Yeah.
and sell them to the counties instead.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's just, it gets me every year. And I know there was one year here when, and I mean, people are going to giggle, but I'm going to say this in my little flair. We have the fucking Weather Channel here in Atlanta. We're less than 10 minutes from the freaking place. Okay? I think it was, 2 years ago we had that major ice storm here in Atlanta and Alabama?
Yeah, something like that.
Something like that. And it was the Weather Channel telling us, it's coming. We know it's coming. It's confirmed. It's coming. You need to close down the schools. You need to do this, that, and the other. And the mayor of Atlanta was like, we're going to keep the school open because he was an idiot.
Oh my god.
And still is. Yeah. So what do the parents do? Lack of agency. They put their kids on the bus before the storm hits. So now that the storm hits and there's ice all over the roads, the kids are stranded in the schools and the parents are yelling at the mayor. Now, I had a couple of friends that were bitching on Facebook about this, and all I did was a very simple reply. Who was the people that put them on the bus?
Yep.
You knew it was coming?
And to make matters worse, Zeus is flashing his junk at us.
That's a hell of a way to put that.
Yeah, he's posing for the Bully of the Month centerfold.
I think he's confused this with a porn channel.
Might have. And my friends got mad at me, but I'm like, you can't always go with what the mayor says. I'm sorry. If you know the storm is coming. I mean, we got the freaking Weather Channel here. It was confirmed. You're going to put your kid on the bus knowing there's a major ice storm coming and then get pissed off when they're stranded at school? No, I'm sorry. It's not the mayor's fault at that point. It's your fault. You're the parent to put them on the bus.
Oh, God, no. Posthematic warning. Ronan will be showing his junk on the next episode of Coffee Talk.
No, he will not.
No, that is Maddy.
No.
You'll see an animated GIF of Ronan's junk stirring the coffee.
What?
Yeah, but I mean, in weather like this, do you really have to, if you know anybody that is in the path of this storm or is right smack dab in the middle of it, and you know they're elderly and you know they don't have the equipment to make it through this, check on them. Send them take them a space heater. I mean, shit, I bought a space heater for like $17.
Oh, they're cheaper than that even.
I mean, you can find space heaters. Check on them. Make sure they're okay. I mean, a lot of these people are...
You know what else? Make sure it's not a 1500 watt. Get a 900 watt, something like that.
Yeah. But I mean,
it doesn't have to be huge.
And for the people that are dumb enough to, have animals out in this weather, here's a rule of thumb for you knuckle skulls. If it's too cold for you to be standing outside with a light jacket on, it's too fucking cold for your animals.
Yep.
Wow.
Period. I mean,
yeah.
It's not even funny if people are doing that, like leaving them outside.
No, I wasn't laughing about that. I just remembered there was an article about Oregon. I just remembered that. Sorry.
Yeah, but I mean, it gets me because they do that in the wintertime. Then you have some stupid people that leave their animals in the car in the summertime, apostematic, unless you have an Alaskan Malamute or something. Well, if they're bred for the cold, that would be the exception. But
that's a different thing.
A lot of these people leave dogs, like Zeus, for instance, in the backyard in 30-degree weather or colder, and then wonder why the dogs have hypothermia. Like, hello, short hair.
Yeah.
Yeah, like my dog came inside fucking shaking after several minutes, and they got long hair, and I gotta I gotta fucking cuddle them for like a couple minutes until they stop shivering.
Yep. I mean, it's common sense that people tend to overlook or disregard. You know, and as far as homeless people are concerned, if you see one, at least take them to a homeless shelter. Don't leave them out there in the cold. They're human too. They've just had a run of some horrendous fucking luck. I mean, come on. Show a little bit of compassion. If you don't want to take them home, I'm sure there's a homeless shelter somewhere. Look up local homeless shelters. Find the homeless people. Take them there. They don't deserve to die in the streets from hypothermia because you drove by knowing you had maybe an hour to spare and it was only 10 minutes away from a fucking, homeless shelter. Come on. It doesn't take much to show just a little bit of compassion.
Nope.
Mm-hmm.
Only takes a moment.
Exactly.
All right. Last story is one that has been lighting up YouTube, and this one was a last-minute ad. Charges against suspect in swatting hoax that led to death could be complicated.
Good?
Yeah. Los Angeles police have arrested Tyler Barris on a fugitive warrant in California arising from a Thursday evening incident in Kansas. This is dated January 1st, so it's 2 days old, where a suspected swatting hoax and a phony 9/11 call ended in the fatal police shooting of an unarmed man, Andrew Finch. Prosecutors will now have to figure out what, if anything, Barris can be charged with in connection with Finch's death.
Conspiracy to commit murder?
Yeah, I would say so. Charges in the case of...
That was easy. Next case? What the fuck?
I know, right?
I'm nobody.
Mm-hmm.
Jesus, if I can figure that out, the people paid to figure that out should be able to fucking figure that out.
Right? Charges in the case have not been filed, but authorities are suspected to address the case Tuesday. That was yesterday. Law enforcement sources familiar with the case told NBC News Barris, 25, could be charged with murder under Kansas law, where he could be convicted. Whether he could be convicted is another issue. Unintentional but reckless second-degree murder in Kansas is an unintentional killing committed recklessly, but so recklessly that it evinces extreme indifference to the value of human life. On the other hand, reckless involuntary manslaughter is an unintentional killing committed just recklessly. I love how they... this is why I hate legalese. This is really why I hate fucking legalese.
Well, see, where I live, we have a charge called open murder, in which someone is killed by another, and they use the open murder charge as an initial charge before the DA is able to determine the precise murder charges that can be applied.
Yeah.
Well, what doesn't make sense that this person, he intentionally framed this other guy to be swatted.
Yeah.
Right. This was done. This was premeditated.
Yeah.
He was gonna fuck him up one way or the other, whether he's dead or alive.
Mm-hmm. And so the crimes differ only in the degree of recklessness required to prove culpability. Basic recklessness is the conscious disregard of a substantial and unjustifiable risk, which is also a gross deviation from a reasonable standard of care. Second-degree murder recklessness is more reckless, that the defendant additionally knew the victim was in imminent danger, although the death was not foreseen. This sounds a lot like intentional murder, but in Kansas, there's the difference. It was the wrong address to begin with.
Well, yeah. There's that, but I almost wonder about this, because it seems to me that if they charge this guy with murder at whatever degree, and he's found guilty, then we have to ask, what does that say about the cop who actually pulled the trigger?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because that cop is wrong too.
Yep. I agree.
This is one of my issues with police. We're hiring the wrong people to be police, and our standards for that hiring are far too low.
Yep. Hi, Mac. Hellbound. Didn't this guy have people sending him requests to SWAT other people? Yes, he was taking money for SWAT requests.
Yeah, he was basically a broker for swatting.
Yes, and he was also had a history of calling in fake bomb threats, which it has been confirmed that during the FCC hearing to rescind the net neutrality stuff, he was the one that called in the bomb threat.
Why has this guy ended up in prison yet?
I have no clue.
A better question.
I have one theory. They don't know under what jurisdiction to charge him.
Yeah, because he ran across
Well,
state lines. Well, wouldn't that make it a federal offense then?
Yeah,
That-
it should be a federal offense, actually.
That, or I'm thinking to myself, like, why wasn't he on... why wasn't he on a list or something? Because he's done this shit in the past. I would think that they would know about that.
You have to be discovered before you could be put on a list.
Yeah.
Oh, he wasn't discovered before now?
Doesn't.
I mean, that's my assumption. You can't put someone on a watch list unless you know they're worth watching.
Yeah.
It may be that no one knew that he was worth watching.
Mac Iota, as I said, he should face terrorism charges, and he's referring to the bomb threats that he would call in.
Yep.
Yeah.
But only if those bomb threats, Mac, were in a political nature. I mean, that's the trick to
true.
terrorism. It has to have a political lean to it.
I mean, if you make a phone call and just say there's a bomb in the school,
Right.
that's not citing a political agenda. It doesn't reach the threshold for terrorism.
Nope.
You could just be letting them know that someone did it, not you.
Exactly. It goes on to say, intentional murder would occur when one shoots a person in a moving car, trying to kill that person. Second-degree reckless murder would occur when one fires a gun in the general direction of a vehicle at night, not intending to kill, and strikes an occupant. The line can be hard to discern. What the fuck? Huh?
How?
It's a simple solution. The guy was in California. He made a call to Kansas that got someone killed. Get the FBI in on it.
Yeah. Barris allegedly made the false 911 call with a specific intent that the police respond to the call and rush to the home of the person Barris had a dispute with. If true, Barris acted in conscious disregard of a substantial and unjustifiable risk that Finch would be harmed. The mental element for second-degree murder is satisfied. It wouldn't matter that the call was intended only as a prank, or even that Barris didn't intend for anyone to actually die. Second-degree murder does not require an intentional death in Kansas. The challenge for the prosecution is not establishing the mental element, it's the causation. Causation is a tricky concept. There are two components, causation in fact and legal causation. Causation in fact is shown by a cause and effect relationship between a defendant's conduct and the harm suffered by the victim. To prove legal causation, prosecutors must show it was foreseeable that the defendant's conduct might create a risk of harm. The harm must be the natural and probable consequence of the wrongful act.
Well, it's easy to demonstrate that it's a foreseeable outcome. All you have to do is punch something into the search on YouTube. You can see all kinds of stuff where cops are just seemingly completely off their fucking nut.
Mm-hmm.
And they start shooting people.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there was one where I believe it was an elderly deaf gentleman who was whittling while walking, and the cop shot him in the back because he didn't hear the cops say put the knife down.
Yeah.
Then there was that one where a teenage boy was who was a Boy Scout. He was shot at a doorway when he opened the door because he was on a Wii remote.
Yeah.
Yeah. And let us not
there's-
forget
there-
the
there's-
caseworker that was shot trying to keep the police from shooting his special needs patient who was just sitting there playing with a fucking toy car.
Yeah. I mean, there's all kinds of evidence, or there's all kinds of demonstrable incidents that would indicate that this is a foreseeable outcome.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a hard stretch to make. It's, you know, the way things are with the police right now, this really could be called murder by cop.
Yeah. I mean, also, too, this is another case of legalese and too many fucking, laws that have too many gray areas and loopholes. The law needs to be simply written.
Yep.
So a person who swats directly causes armed police officers to go to a victim's home and also causes those officers to be prepared for an imminent threat. It also foreseeable that sending the police with guns drawn to someone's house could probably result in a shooting death. This seems pretty straightforward, but it's not. Expect the defense in this case to argue that the police's independent decision to shoot Finch was an intervening, superseding event breaking the chain of causation. The problem is he called in and he told him the guy was armed, dangerous, and it was an active hostage situation.
Yeah. See, that's that. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, the guy was on the phone with the police for 20 minutes, and he kept on ramping it up.
Yeah. I mean, the only reason that the SWAT would be called in is if it's, a high threat situation.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And
Exactly.
Yeah.
And and like it or not, none of that would have happened. None of that would have been set in motion if this guy hadn't picked up the fucking phone.
Yeah,
Yes.
exactly.
Well, yeah.
And intervening.
I'm sorry. Go
Go
ahead.
ahead, Mitch. No, go ahead. Finish your thought.
No, I'm just saying that the cause and effect is clearly demonstrable.
I completely agree. An intervening cause harms someone after the defendant's act has been committed. It absolves the defendant of liability only if it supersedes the defendant's negligence by breaking the connection between the initial act, calling 911, and the harm caused, the shooting. If the likelihood that a third person may act in a particular manner is one of the hazards of the original criminal act, that act, even if criminal itself, does not prevent the original actor from being liable for causing harm. He's the one that placed the call!
Yes. What?
Well, maybe they're talking about the guy that triggered him to do this. Like, what would have been
You mean the guy
probable
that paid
cause
him?
for this guy to do this? Like, who was it that he was after? Why was he after?
According to Mac, he said, yeah, I've seen the video. He was threatening to burn the house down and stuff. He said his mom and sister locked in a closet and was keeping a gun on them. That's a high-threat situation. Henceforth, SWAT.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Exactly.
Swatting
Why
is...
would he say that?
I don't know. He was paid to do this, which is despicable in and of itself.
Jeez.
Well, yeah. Then that again. I think you could conceivably bring federal charges against the person who paid him as well.
Mm-hmm.
You could.
Mm-hmm.
You definitely could.
Yep.
Wow.
Swatting...
So, come on, FBI. You keep it.
Oh, he wasn't paid? I heard that he was, Mac.
Yeah, that's what I'd heard too.
Yeah.
But
There was a bet or something. I don't know.
well, no, there was $1.50 or $1.25 bet over a
What?
Call of Duty game or some such. That the guy lost the bet, contacted this dude who contacted the professional swatter to have the guy swatted.
Yeah. Swatting is a relatively new phenomenon, Gamergate. Excuse me, hello. Which means there's a sparse legal precedent for guidance. Courts may look to cases where a speeding motorist leads police on a high-speed chase and pursuing police officer crashes into and kills an innocent victim. Okay, and then they're doing this little, let's compare. Okay, there's no comparison between a car wreck and a swatting. I'm sorry, there isn't.
Well, no.
No.
Who
That's a false
paid
equivalence.
the fleeing suspect in the car chase to be a fleeing suspect?
Exactly.
You know, where's the third party? There isn't one.
Yeah. So, Interstate Swatting Hoax Act of 2015 would have imposed sentences of up to 5 years if a hoax call resulted in an emergency response, and up to life in prison if death resulted. The FBI estimates 400 swatting attacks occur every year, Clark said in a statement when announcing the bill.
Wait a second. Didn't they just say that this is a relatively new phenomenon and there's not enough of a...
Yeah.
And that quote about 400 attacks occur every year is from 2015?
2015. Mm-hmm.
Fuck you. There's a...
Yeah. So there's no federal law specifically against swatting. U.S. Representative Katherine Clark, a Democrat from Massachusetts, introduced a bill in 2015 designed to address swatting. In other words, she tried to have a bill passed. Apparently, it didn't pass. Police officers have a heavy burden to make independent decisions to use or not to use lethal force, often in a split second under stressful conditions. Unquestionably, the cause of Finch's death was a bullet, and that bullet was fired by the officer, not Barris. Yet under Kansas law, Barris could still be found criminally responsible for Finch's death, as he should be.
Good.
Yes.
That should be
But
fair.
we know what's going to happen there, don't we? They're going to investigate it internally and find that they've done nothing wrong, and they're going to try to put the entire onus on the guy who made the phone call.
Yep. Thrax. Swatting has been around for at least a decade. It's not new. We all know it's not new.
Yeah. It's not new at all.
No. It's only become more infamous through these live Twitch things.
Yeah, the Twitch streams. Now,
Yeah.
there is something that you can do, but in some cases, some police won't take you seriously, and that is to go to your local police precinct, introduce yourself, and tell them, and have them put it on the record, who you are, what your address is, and say that you are a streamer, whether on Twitch or YouTube. That way, if somebody tries to call a SWAT in on you, it will come up in the computer, and they will realize that somebody is trying to, prank you or scare the shit out of you. To me, this isn't a prank. To me, the person that calls the SWAT should be arrested for a false report.
Well, yeah, this is a hostile act.
Yeah.
True.
I mean, you're falsely reporting a crime.
Yeah.
You're wasting police resources. That's true.
Mm-hmm. You are most definitely wasting police resources on something that doesn't really need to be happening.
Meanwhile, and see, this is part of the problem with police. Meanwhile, if you get pulled over and you ask, what have I done? They're going to charge you with obstruction of justice.
What?
Since
when?
Well, that's just how it works now. They throw everything they can at the wall. If you have any questions, if you question them in any way, question what they're doing, they're going to charge you with obstruction of justice. Mm-hmm. It almost never sticks because no DA in the right mind would look at that and buy it, But they're going to do it because right now, whether the police recognize it or not, they're being used as revenue generators. That's why there's not a lot of attention focused on solving major crimes and finding solutions to stuff like this swatting. And there's also not a lot of interest in teaching police how to properly de-escalate a situation anymore.
Yeah.
No.
It's all about, at the end of the month, do you have enough paperwork to turn in? That's just it, and I don't think the police really understand that. I don't think the police necessarily see that they're being used in that way.
Yeah.
Part of it is they're trained to go in and take absolute control of a situation right now.
Yeah.
And the only way to do that is to be hostile.
And
unless you're smart.
Mm-hmm.
If you're smart, you can do it by being friendly. But here's the thing. In 1999, a federal judge named Dorsey, I've said this before, some people will recognize it, threw out a case in New London, Connecticut, where a man had applied to be a police officer, and he didn't get hired because he scored too high on an intelligence test. This man then filed suit against the police agent in question, and the federal judge threw it out. They've basically got a standard of not hiring people beyond a certain intelligence.
Well,
I saw another report on it was either 2020 or Dateline, one of those shows. And mind you, this was decades ago, so I couldn't look it up to save my life, as a to cite the source. But there was another fella who had encountered that same situation, but then he went in and retook the test, intentionally scored lower on the intelligence portion, and he was then hired.
Yeah. Max states, to be honest, police departments all around America are overarmed. Police are given military-grade equipment that is not needed. In some cases and in small towns, I would agree with you. But in larger metropolitan areas where the criminals can actually obtain fully automatic weapons and military-grade bulletproof vests, they have to have that type of armament just to keep up with the technology that is illegally on the streets.
Yeah, I remember.
The thing I gotta keep in mind with those kinds of things is that black markets fucking exist.
Yeah.
They do. They do. And they're out there, and obviously somebody's gonna go fucking look for a deal. Like, I remember... I just remember, like, hearing people saying shit like, oh, I could go to a guy on the fucking street corner and ask him, hey, can you, like, sell me drugs? Can you sell me a fucking, like...
It was
weapon arm, like,
dude. 15 or 20 years ago is when they started addressing the underarmament of the police with, I think it was a California case in Los Angeles, if I remember correctly. Police were called to stop, I believe it was bank robbers, and all they had were 9mm guns and standard grade bulletproof vests, shotguns, and they were going up against bank robbers that had fully automatic weapons and tack gear.
Oh yeah, I think I've seen that before.
Well, yeah, they were practically head to toe in Kevlar.
Yeah.
The bank robber.
Mm-hmm.
And the cops, what the cops had, just couldn't penetrate.
Yeah.
However, to continue on my prior point about intelligent police, I want to respect the police, but I can't at this point because we're not hiring the cream of the crop. We're not hiring the best of the best. I want the best of the best. I want the smartest motherfucker in there in uniform and doing investigations. I want the smart ones in that position. I don't want someone who couldn't get a job as a fucking mail carrier.
Yeah.
Mac Iota, the problem, though, in my opinion, is they are given military-grade equipment to police officers who aren't properly trained to handle them, especially
That's
when
true.
they get the tanks. Yeah, I will agree with you there. To me,
you got the toys, you want to use them.
To me, there needs to be more training, more evaluations of the police officers. If they're going to be given these high-grade tech weapons and armaments, they need to be taught how to use them, and they need to be taught how to de-escalate a situation. They can't go in there guns blazing all the time.
They also need to emphasize the Bill of Rights when they train police officers.
Yeah.
I mean, because right now, in too many cases, our police agencies treat the population of this country as though the police agency is an invading foreign army.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that ain't right.
Well, I mean, and also, too, this culture that we're doing now where, there are certain places in the United States that are raising their children to have an utter disdain and disrespect for the law doesn't help either.
No, it doesn't.
Yeah, like, that's the biggest fucking thing is, like, I know my fucking aunt, like, put emphasis on what she did in her community when she lived down, like, in, say, near Dallas and shit. She used to take, cupcakes or cookies to the police department and just say, like, thank you, and, like, give them stuff to eat just to be, like, courteous towards the fucking police. Because if you... Let me just say this right now. If you're gonna go in there and you're gonna say, fuck you, and you're gonna go up to an officer's face, flip them the bird, and say, fuck you, and fuck your authority or whatever the hell, you're either gonna get shot, or you're gonna get arrested.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry.
I mean, in certain states, spitting on a police officer is assault.
Well, it's assault no matter what.
Yeah.
It is assault.
I've even seen a video where a gentleman was walking down the street, police car drove by, and the guy just waved at him, so the cops stopped him and started hassling him.
Yeah.
I've seen this video.
Now, there are, and I will say this for clarification, there are dickheads and people that abuse the badge, and they're on a power trip, and then there are those that are there because they believe they were called to it, and they do their job as they're supposed to do it.
Oh, absolutely. I'm sure. I've seen them too. I've known a couple.
Yeah, me too.
There was it was at an airport where someone was handing out flyers about the new scanners, about the potential cancer/radiation dangers, blah blah blah, whatever. And an airport, I don't know, high up muckety muck type person decided that these people were in violation. Well, these people checked out the law. They did everything according to the law, and when they got a county sheriff there finally, the county sheriff, he was the sheriff's deputy, the deputy had basically taken their side and said, no, they have a right to pass this stuff out. They have the right to inform people of this. They have the right to hand out these flyers. They're not blocking anyone's way. They're not obstructing free movement. They're perfectly well within their rights to do this. It's a First Amendment issue. They have a right to do this. You can't stop them. And then, the airport employee asked, hey, can I take one of the flyers? And they said, they're like, yeah, sure. So he grabs a stack of the flyers, and the cop says, you don't need a stack of them. You can have one. You don't need a whole stack. Because the guy was basically trying to take a stack so that they wouldn't be there quite as long.
Yeah. Well, I mean, to me, in this particular case.
That's a good cop, by the way.
Oh, yeah. I mean, in this particular case, number one, the guy that, bet the guy the $1.50 should have some sort of charges brought against him because he knew what was going to happen. The guy that made the call should definitely have charges, and he should be brought to court. Because there's a family that is completely broken up, and there is a father that is no longer living. Because of this bullshit.
Not to mention what's going on with the police officer who shot them.
Oh yeah, he needs to be reviewed.
Right.
He needs to be suspended. He needs to be investigated. He needs to be given a psychological review, and and I'm sorry, but he needs to be arrested himself.
Yes.
Well, yeah, I mean,
I understand.
let's face it. If I discharge a weapon and it takes someone's life, I'm going to be arrested regardless of guilt or innocence. That's up for a court to decide. But a cop gets vacation with pay.
Yeah.
Bullshit. Arrest that guy, put him in the tank with everyone else until we get a determination on the case.
Yeah.
You know, have a hearing, determine if he's a flight risk or not, just like with anyone else.
Yeah.
You know, we're supposed to be treated equally under law in this country, regardless of our profession or how much money we have, yada blah, yada blah. You know, let's start living up to it.
Okay, this is a picture that Mac linked to me. This is from Ferguson, so I will be full disclosure as to where the buy a Posmatic, take care, honey, take care of yourself. I hope your back feels better soon.
Yep, indeed.
Okay, here you have somebody with their hands up. Okay, and this is what I see in the picture. I don't know the story behind the picture because it's just a picture, but upon first look, you have somebody with their hands up. They look to be complying with the police, and you have how many policemen aiming weapons in this guy's direction?
I see about 10, but one of them is carrying on the far right. If you look at that weapon, it's got a hopper on it. That's a less than lethal weapon. It's probably got something like a paintball with a pepper or a super stink in it.
Yeah. Thrax
the
says
rest look like
the rest look like they're armed for bear.
Yeah. They're looking for some shit.
Thrax says my problem with police is lack of training in regards to the mentally handicapped.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
I completely agree. Because number one, I understand number one. You don't know the situation you're walking into when you're called to a situation, especially a domestic dispute. That's number one. Number two, you have to have the wherewithal and the presence of mind to assess the situation that you have been called to and dispatched to. Okay? Number three, in order to assess the situation that you have been dispatched to, you have to ask questions, especially if the person isn't responding. Because if the person isn't responding, that could mean they're deaf. That could mean they're low functioning autistic and just don't hear you. Not because they're deaf, but because mentally, because of their autism, they're not responding to stimulus around them.
True.
Yeah, all kinds of things.
You know, so they have to be taught to ask questions to assess the situation that they have been dispatched to.
They could be wearing Apple's new earbuds without a wire so you can't see that they're wearing them and listening to something.
Yeah.
And they can't hear you, for fuck's sake.
CT, what I'm trying to say is they should be held highly accountable than the rest of us. They should. They should. The police should.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Neil, Neil says I need to see the larger context of this image, like there was a riot going on or something. I understand.
Yeah, I agree.
But this is just a quote-unquote first look, because I did say at the beginning that there is no story to this. This is just an image.
Right.
So we're just assessing the image as we can see it. This could have been done during the Ferguson riots, so them being on high alert and being in the postures that they're being in is completely acceptable. But then
Mac points out, thing is, the guy during the swatting didn't get to say anything. He opened the door and the cop opened fire.
Exactly. That's what I mean by the police.
The cop needs to be held accountable.
Exactly, he does. Because he didn't assess the situation. The guy just opened the door and blam! He was shot in the chest. No questions.
To answer Mad Panda's question, did they do any sort of background check? To my knowledge, they were on the phone with the swatter for 20 minutes. And I'm sure that part of that 20 minutes was the cops on the ride over to this guy's house. I doubt they did any sort of background. I doubt they did
I doubt it too.
I doubt they did a check to get the guy's name or to even run him for warrants or anything like that.
Yeah.
Because, now... And this is the other thing I have with... I don't want to say low IQ cops because that's...
ill-trained.
That may not necessarily be the case, but ill-trained and certainly not the people with the highest IQ who want to be cops.
Mm-hmm. And
Well,
some,
My problem is that I'm afraid that someone with a lower IQ and who's improperly trained is going into a situation like this thinking, this is my chance to be a hero.
yeah.
yeah, the
That's
hero.
my worry.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like with the what's it like? Oh yeah, like when teenagers are playing shit like Call of Duty or other shooters, or like this power play and such. Like, oh, the military must be exactly like this. Like, no.
Yeah. Well, I mean, to me, and then you have to take into consideration that some of these police officers are retired military. And some of these retired military that have become police officers have seen combat, so they have PTSD to a certain degree.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
So these, in my assessment and in my opinion, these particular police officers need to be psychologically evaluated to make sure they can be in these high stress situations and not have a flashback, for lack of a better term.
Right. Mariel, your question, why couldn't they triangulate the source of the call? That's because the caller used they basically bounced the signal.
Oh.
They scrambled and bounced it so it looked like it came from that locality.
Let me see, Mac. As much as I don't like Keemstar all that much, I would say he did a good job, as the interview he had with the swatter can be used as a confession.
Yep.
Well, he did do the interview with consent, but the question is, can a YouTube video of that particular nature being an interview be used as evidence in a court of law?
Yes, it can. Because it's out there in the public whatchamawhat. It's in a way it
public
becomes
eye?
public domain.
Okay.
If you know what I mean. Not like the copyright version of public domain, but it's within the public domain.
Yeah.
It's up there for anyone to see. The guy went into the interview knowing that. So therefore, if he says it out in the open, then
That's on him.
Then yeah, it's like when you hold up your cell phone to get footage of something across the street and you catch a traffic accident.
Yeah.
That
Pretty
footage
much.
becomes evidence. The footage of that interview becomes evidence. It may not reach the standard of an official confession to police, but it is still usable as evidence.
Okay.
And I hope Keemstar turns that fucking over. Like, seriously, if he turns that over to the police, I hope he fucking does that, because
Oh shit, I
he,
can turn it over
he
to
of
the
all
police.
people should know how it fucking feels, too, because he's been swatted a couple times, at least.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Shit, all I have to do is download the video and hand it over to the police.
Yeah.
You don't need Keemstar to do it.
That's what was going on during Daddy 05 when they were deleting everything. People had already
Oh,
archived the
God.
stuff and turned it over to the police.
Yep.
It's evidence.
Yeah.
Oh, I haven't heard that name in a while.
Yeah.
I
What
wonder
name?
why.
But I mean, this is stuff like this swatting stuff. It's despicable and it's childish.
It's more than childish. It's fucking asinine. It's immature. It's
It's petty.
everything in the fucking book, but common sense and fucking maturity.
I mean, to me, in order for you to make a bet to do this, you have to be an A-type personality asshole. Who
Well, they didn't make a
decides-
bet to do it. The bet was on who was going to win the match.
Yeah.
That's nothing.
Which leads back to competition bringing out the worst in people in certain situations.
Yeah, over $1.50. I mean, come on, man, grow a
That's
dick.
part of the reason why in League of Legends I don't fucking like doing anything that has to do with fucking competition. I'd rather just do shit with my friends. Like,
Yep.
fuck me, sideways. Like, even my friends get fucking ugly when they play shit.
Oh, according to Thrax, Keem has swatted people too.
Yeah, and that even more fucking reason. At least he'd be setting a fucking example for people.
Yeah.
True.
Yep.
For once in his damn life, he'd be setting an example.
I know.
Mac knows the story about the match.
Pop into Discord and let us know. Fill us in, Mac. I can drag you in.
Yep.
By
Is
all
that
means,
Ronan?
the more about the story we know, the happier we are. Yes, that is Ronan tippy tapping.
Oh, he woke up.
Yep, I checked the thing. He's up.
Well, yeah, I'm watching, but there's a difference between being mobile and being awake. I know from
There
experience.
is.
Tranime swatting is Russian roulette for hire. I can see that.
Pretty much.
Oh, fuck.
Well, I mean, you don't know what's going to happen to the person when you call a SWAT on them.
Well,
That's true.
and that's largely because we have this volatile police force.
Mm-hmm.
We need to figure out how to decrease the volatility in the police force. And, probably a lot of the population needs to calm the fuck down, too.
Well, I think that's the first issue. That's the first issue is addressing what the fuck is there. Well, I would say, yeah, the first issue is what the fuck is going on. Second issue is like what the fuck is going on in the police force, and then the second issue is addressing how the people are fucking dealing with it. Because once you have to address the first one first and get that all done and over with before you start talking to the people.
Not being a cop, I don't know what the police issue is when looking at it from their side. So there has to be a thing where people come together.
Hello.
Hey, Mac.
Hey, Mac.
So what is the whole story, dear?
Right, basically what ended up happening is there is a site where you can actually use to gamble through Call of Duty, where you can actually have your matches. And they set up a match between them and another team. Now it was only for $1.50. That's what the whole bet was about. So basically what happened during the match is the team that lost, two of the players had an argument with each other, cause one of the players accidentally shot one of them and friendly fired, killed the guy. So as soon as the next match started, the guy that got killed did the exact same thing. Just done it purposely. Then the one who got shot left the game. They started arguing about everything that was going on, and then basically one of them ended up saying, I'm going to SWAT you, and he was like, you don't have the balls to. And that's when the guy contacted the SWATer, saying this guy doesn't believe he'll be swatted. The guy never got paid for it. He just said, you won't believe that you'll get swatted. And that's why he did it. But it turned out that basically the guy that said, you won't swat me, he actually sent the guy an address. And it wasn't his real address.
Oh, so now we have another layer of culpability.
Uh-huh.
Supposedly, it's an address that is a few doors down from him.
Oh, shit.
Oh,
So-
Jesus.
What a
I
dick.
can't 100% guarantee that one, but it's like I seen an interview with one of the folk in the team, and that's what he said. I can't confirm. Obviously, that's what actually happened, but it's that's everything that basically happened through the entire match. It was a petty argument over losing $1.50, and then a swatting happened to it.
Because he provided a false address, because this guy thought he was actually going to swat his friend.
Yes, and then
Wow.
he provided the fake address to the swatter.
Yeah. That's just, that doesn't make it any better.
That's,
No.
It sadly makes it worse.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, exactly. What the fuck?
It's as I said to one of my mates, that through all this we know one thing: the cost of a man's life is $1.50.
Yeah, it's morbid but true at this point. Jeez.
Basically, a guy's life was lost because someone wanted to say, "Oh yeah."
Yeah.
I bet you can't do it.
Yeah.
But
Because a dumbass decided to be a dumbass and then got somebody
You want to
fucking
know-
killed for his own fucking stupidity. That's about
You want-
fucking it.
I can add another little layer onto it if you want. The kid that provided the fake address, his own father is a police officer.
Oh Christ.
Motherfucker.
What?
Where is that kid's house so I can go kick his ass?
Yeah. Right?
Oh my
Dear
god.
Yeah.
fuck.
The more we learn about this story, the more convoluted it becomes. This is just dumb.
More
It is
convoluted, the
so
more
bad.
like Illuminati fucking lizard people it get.
Well,
Don't laugh at me, I'm in
that
a bad
man.
fucking mood.
Yep.
That is awful. This is just like layers upon layers of bullshit.
Yep.
We have an
Yeah.
old man in here.
Thank you.
And on that note, This has been another.
intimately.
Yeah, we're getting ready to wrap it up. And on that note, this has been another Coffee Talk. I hope you guys have found it informative and you got a little bit more of the story than the mainstream media has been telling you. I have been joined this evening by Lou.
Hello and goodbye. Love
Mac.
Goodbye. I won't hear a short time, but she's left.
Plastic Walnut.
Hello, and good night.
Mitch the Ripper.
A product of Hillsdale Consumer Products.
And last but not least, popping in when you least expect him, the Batman.
I'm watching you all.
You can
Batman's
catch
ruined the show for everyone.
right. You can catch more Coffee Talk at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Mondays and Wednesdays, where we go a little bit more in depth with the stories that the mainstream media is trying to spin you. So you get the good, the bad, the ugly, and everything in between. Please join us for another Coffee Talk next week. If you want to see more of me, the Morning Brew is 10:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, where I do news, shout-outs, and whatever torture the live chat wants to put me into for the funny story of the day.
Cough, cough.
So,
What the hell kind of reaction was that?
whether it's coffee or tea, have a good evening, guys. See you next
Yeah,
time.
mid shuffle.